Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Am I the A-hole for telling my dad's wife I own the house she lives in? My dad married a woman named Maria a year ago after dating for 4 years. My dad wanted to buy a larger house for them to live in, but couldn't afford it without selling the home he lived in at the time, which is a unique property that he dearly loves. Although I now live abroad, I like the area he lives in, and my husband offered to buy a house there that my dad and Maria could live in. My dad agreed to this on the proviso that we not tell Maria that it wasn't him who paid for the house. This made no difference to me, so I agreed, and the house they live in is in my name, and they live there. I never planned to tell her. Recently, I went back to my home country and decided to stay with my dad for half my time there. The whole time, Maria made it clear I was an inconvenience and that me doing things with my dad was annoying to her. But I am not a confrontational person, and I don't react to much, so I let it go. However, 2 days before I was due to leave, she came into my room and saw that I had my dad's dog on the bed. Now, this is a dog that my dad has had since before he met Maria, and that I raised. Maria doesn't allow him on her bed, which is fine, but I've always had him sleep on mine. She flipped out, saying this was the final straw, that she'd had enough of me disrespecting her in her own home, and I had to leave. I tried to de-escalate the situation, saying we should just wait for my dad and sit down and talk this out, but she was adamant that I had to leave and that she had the authority to make me. After several minutes of me trying to explain to her that it was absurd of her to try and kick me out of my dad's house without talking to him, she said that what she said went, and since she married my dad, this is technically her house. I just chuckled and said, since my name is on the deed, it's technically my house, but there's no need to get technical. We should just wait for my dad. She was shocked and left the room. When my dad came back, I told him what happened, and he went to speak to her. There was a shouting match, and she didn't speak to either one of us until I left 2 days later. My dad is mad that I told her, which I get, but since then I've also got texts from her kids saying I was the AH for telling her and making her feel like a guest in the house. This isn't the case. She isn't a guest, she's a tenant. But so is my dad. And the only point I was trying to make was that she didn't have any business trying to kick me out of my father's house, let alone my own property. I didn't take it there until she did. That said, maybe I should have just left the ownership out and let my dad handle it. Comment said, not the a-hole. She internally struggled with wanting you to do what she wanted. It escalated due to her need to be the boss in her house. You disrespect me in my house. You were gracious to allow her to save face several times. You offered options, call my dad. This type of personality will lose it once they know they don't have control. You did not make her feel anything. She created this situation. You again are gracious to allow them to enjoy a beautiful home. Maybe she feels deceived by your father. The children need to pipe down. It was your first visit, and she was not cordial to you. Another comment said, not the a-hole. She's treating you like crap in a house that you and your husband bought for them. If this is how she acts when she thinks it's her house, you've seen her true colors. Besides, she also tries to control your dad spending time with you. So you basically did him a favor. She's lucky that you didn't kick her out of the house right then and there, when she was practically berating you. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not leaving my mother-in-law anything to eat after she said she wasn't hungry? We usually do intermittent fasting, meaning we don't eat after 5 p.m., but when I'm on my period, my appetite gets several times bigger. Last night I craved for a chicken sandwich with chili, and I asked my mother-in-law whether she wanted any. She said no, she wasn't hungry, and since my husband doesn't eat at that time, I only made one. I quickly gobbled it up, and when my mother-in-law came into the kitchen again, the plate was already wiped clean. She asked me in shock, "You're done that fast?" I was pretty embarrassed and told her it's my favorite. Then she said, and you didn't think to at least offer people staying in the house with you a bite. I was confused and told her, but you said you weren't hungry and Jake, my husband, doesn't eat at this hour. She said you didn't think to store some in the fridge in case I do get hungry. I told her I'm sorry. I really didn't think that far ahead. I'll make a new one, but then I remembered that we were out of chili and sheepishly told her I'm going to go buy some. She told me not to bother, but I insisted. But even after looking at several convenience stores, I couldn't find the brand I was looking for. And since it was nearly midnight by then, I didn't have many options. I called Jake and asked him what I should do, and he told me just to get one from a snack bar near us. When I got home, though, and brought it to my mother-in-law, she refused to eat it and said, I told you to forget it. I don't eat takeout. She insisted she didn't want it, nor did she want anything else, as she wasn't hungry, that she had just smelled the chili earlier and wanted a bite. I told her, okay, if you need anything, let me know. I went back to the kitchen and ate that sandwich too. The next day, Jake and I wake up to find mother-in-law gone with a text sent to her husband that says she won't be putting her foot in our house ever again for the amount of disrespect I showed her. Apparently, she did get hungry later and went looking for the sandwich and couldn't find it. Jake was livid that I ate that one too and told me this is my fault and I should go with him to apologize to her. I got angry too and told him why couldn't she have just asked directly instead of going around all these circles in the first place. He ignored me and grabbed his jacket and keys and left. Am I really in the wrong here? Comment said, not the a-hole, but I am so proud of you for accidentally outing this woman's manipulative behavior. Chaotic good. I just picture everyone in this house sneaking back into the kitchen to eat random food and the next person being so GD sad that it's gone. To be clear, you went above and beyond by trying to replicate the chicken chili sandwich the first time. That was far more than required by standards of kindness. You asked and she declined. Twice, girl. She's setting you up at the point, but you literally ate right through her plan. I love it. Another comment said, not the a-hole. Your mother-in-law needs to learn how to communicate better. You are not a mind reader. Does she not cook for herself? I'm assuming she is old school, and when she cooks with intention of feeding more than herself and possibly leftovers. But you asked if she wanted. She said no. Not hungry. Are you to assume when she says no, she means yes? If she just wanted a bite later, she could have said. Then you would have left her some chili or made extra. The next story is titled, Am I the A-hole for pointing out that my daughter's house is still technically mine and that my grandson should sleep on the air mattress? I sold my house to my daughter when I moved out to another city. She just had my grandson, and she and her husband couldn't afford a down payment plus mortgage or anything like that. Our agreement is for her to pay me monthly over 15 years, and there would be no fees for that. Part of our agreement is that the house will be in her name when she pays me in full, and I will be able to use the guest room 2 times a year, 2 to 3 days, even if they are not home at the time. They agreed because nowhere would they accept this deal without extremely high fees. Plus, the house was nice. All of this in a contract protecting both parties. It's always the same dates, my aunt and my mother's birthday, and another annual event in the city that I love. The house has 4 bedrooms and 2 baths. When visiting, I try not to disturb and not cause a mess, but it's not worth staying in a hotel because it's expensive. It's a tourist region. It's been 5 years, and my daughter had my other 2 grandchildren, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. I was recently talking to my daughter, and I remembered that I would be staying at her house for 2 days for the city event. She seemed quiet and started saying that the boys wanted their own rooms and ended up giving the guest room to the oldest, the 6-year-old. So there was no room for me, and she thinks it's unfair to have to ask him to sleep on the mattress in his own room. So I had the option of sleeping on the mattress or paying for the hotel. I asked if the bed was still the same as in the guest room. She said yes, and when I asked if she would pay for my hotel, she said no. By the way, I have a lot of back pain, and I would end up sleeping on the mattress, and she knows that. I was disappointed and said I thought it was disrespectful for her to even mention these options to me when we have our agreement. She started saying that it was her house, and she could decide who would sleep where because of that. This bothered me, and I reminded her the house is still technically mine until she pays me the full amount that our agreement was, that I could use the guest room 2 times a year, and that my grandson is young, does not have back pain, that will not get worse if he sleeps on a mattress. She got angry, saying the reality is different now, and she has 3 children. So I should understand her side that my request is not fair, considering that at the time she didn't have so many children, and the reality is different now. She's still angry that if I have to sleep in the hotel, she will have to pay. Am I the a-hole? Comment said, not the a-hole, obviously. You're just visiting for 2 ducking days. The kid can't sleep on an air mattress or the couch for 2 ducking days? Seriously. We always give up a bed in my house when my grandma comes to visit before we had our guest room. Of course she'll sleep in my room, and not on the goddamn couch for a weekend. I feel like I'm going crazy reading some of these. YTA. She's not kicking the family out of the house for 2 days or at all, just wants the agreed-upon bed for 2 nights. Another comment said, not the a-hole. 2 to 3 days sounds like a very reasonable amount of time for a 6-year-old to share the room or sleep on a mattress when his grandmother is visiting. That said, it is also not enough reason to use the ownership of the house as an argument to control what happens in it. That could be the last resort in a very bad case, but it is very harsh to consider it after one minor issue. Another comment said, not the a-hole. She is in breach of the agreement, and she must remedy that breach. When you visit, you get that room, and she has to double her kids up? What are we talking about here? 2 visits a year? How big a hardship will that be? Your daughter appears to be quite the ingrate. If she is effectively kicking you out, you're entitled to add the cost of hotels to her bill. The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for asking my son to get a paternity test? My son is 18, has found out that one of his ex-girlfriends is 8 months pregnant. He knew nothing of the sort of her being pregnant until now, and now he's just expected to accept everything, no questions asked. My daughter's 20, is good friends with this girl, and knew about her pregnancy but said nothing to us because her friend asked her not to. My son was head over heels for this lady, but she ended up breaking his heart by cheating on him and was very needy and manipulative to spend a lot of money on her because she would ask for gifts my son couldn't even afford and convince him to use one of my credit cards to achieve it. My daughter, who isn't currently living with us and is actually rooming with her by her college, is also being manipulated by her and thinks she only does good and doesn't believe that she convinced her brother to use my credit or that she even cheated. Showed up with my son's ex-girlfriend at my door to help her tell us that she's pregnant. When I see her there at my door visually pregnant, I knew she was going to be saying that my son is the father of her child, and immediately said that my son will not be putting in any money or time until there is a paternity test, proving that it is his child. My son backed me up and agreed. My daughter was horrified by my comment and accused me of encouraging him to be a deadbeat father, and was upset that I didn't even give them a chance to explain themselves. My son's ex started crying, saying you always assume the worst of me, and that she went 8 months of pregnancy alone, and the least you could do is ensure she is taken care of for the betterment of his child. I do agree that if this is his child, we're going to ensure mom is doing well to ensure baby is doing well. But I don't want my son to be involved with her only to get his heart broken again, and only to find out the child isn't his. Am I the a-hole here? Comment said, not the a-hole. You're protecting your son. She has a history of cheating, manipulating situations, and it's better to find out now than later down the line. If it's not his, problem solved, and it'll knock the problem with your daughter still being under her influence right out. If it's his, there'll be stuff to sort out for sure, but at least you'll know without a doubt. Another comment said, not the a-hole. That's life. They were in a relationship. She cheated. They broke up, and now she's pregnant. Anyone, no matter how old, should ask for a paternity test. The fact that she got defensive is a bit of a red flag. She should welcome the paternity test if she's being truthful, and your daughter seems naive if she assumes that a woman wouldn't lie to a man about paternity. This happens far too often, unfortunately. Another comment said, not the a-hole at all. Remove all the ages, and it's still a common and wise decision when a female is 8 months pregnant, yet chooses not to tell the possible father until she needs money. Your son absolutely needs to do the paternity test one way or another. Info: what role do her parents have in all of this? Another comment said, not the a-hole. He broke up with her for cheating. Spent 8 months hiding a pregnancy. Your daughter is an a-hole to side with her without knowing her sexual activity. She has zero right to be offended and should go back to minding her own business. Your son should absolutely force the issue of her having a paternity test. Too many times guys get stuck financially for a child not theirs. The courts are not fair either, because once he claims the child is his, a judge may decide he is responsible even if not his. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you would like the video and subscribe to our channel. If you haven't already, we'll see you again tomorrow.